Hi, my name's Nolan Wright. I marked question 11 in the Extension 1 HSC Maths this year, for last year, 2020. Question 11 was generally well answered. It contained skill work from polynomials, vectors, functions, trig equations and differential equations. Part A was a polynomial question where they needed to do a substitution, and as you can see on the PowerPoint, it was a straightforward one, and then they needed to find the resultant factor by doing a long division. Now, long division was the way that most of the students went. The error they made, they used x plus 2 instead of x minus 2. Otherwise, question 11 part A was well done. Part B was a vector question. They needed to show that the two vectors were perpendicular. The straightforward way was to use the dot product, and that formula was on the reference sheet, which some students didn't use, and then factorise and solve from there as per the solution. The other method that we came across were students finding the gradients of the perpendicular position vectors. And once again, once they got this started, they generally got to the end, but they did make a few mistakes. And we noticed there were a few odd methods of factorising, which was interesting for us, but you will see that as you're going through your classwork. Part C was a question that involved graphing a function. A function was given to them and they needed to do the reciprocal function. The interesting error that we found was students were trying to graph the inverse function as opposed to the reciprocal function. The graph required them to show all the features. Some features were incorrect. And we also came across cases where students would try and find the equation of the original function and then find the reciprocal function from there and then graph that function. But generally well done. Part D was a trig equation question. This was probably the hardest question to mark because there were so many parts to it. It was worth 4 marks. And students could either do it 2 ways. They could use the auxiliary angle method, or they could expand a sine x plus alpha and find a and alpha from there. It was interesting to see that a number of students didn't expand that correctly because they weren't using the reference sheet. So that is something that probably needs to be pointed out to students. Once they found the a and alpha, they managed to go through and find the solutions correctly, but in some cases, there were answers given outside the domain or answers that weren't inside the domain. Like they could change it up and get the correct answers. Part E was a differential equation question. And this question here required an understanding of how they could separate a differential equation. In some cases, students didn't separate the variables, they just did a straight integration, or in some cases, a differentiation. And a number of students rearranged or attempted to rearrange their answers to obtain y as a function of x, which wasn't necessary for this question. Thank you.